Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speak, Film, and Enter, a podcast where we review and rank movies. I'm Nate,
And I'm Dylan.
and today we are reviewing Creed 3 from,
Mm-hmm.
I believe, first-time director Michael B. Jordan. Is that correct? I actually don't know if that's correct or
I
not.
don't know.
But
I didn't even realize when I was going into the movie that he had directed it.
yeah, this is the first movie he's directed, and it's also the first in the Rocky franchise that doesn't have Rocky in it.
Yep. Interesting
But what it does
choice.
have is Jonathan Majors, which was a big
Mm-hmm.
draw for me, as I'm not really much of a boxing movie fan, but a big Jonathan Majors fan. I also like Michael
Mm-hmm.
B. Jordan as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
Dylan, what is Creed 3 about?
Well, Nate, Adonis has been thriving in both his career and family life, but when a childhood friend and former boxing prodigy resurfaces, the face-off is more than just a fight.
I felt like you had a little disdain when you said boxing prodigy there.
It's more than just a fight, Nate.
Yeah, it is.
It's not just a face-off.
Also, I heard a rumor that the fight takes place in Los Angeles.
Ooh, I did hear that as well.
Yeah.
At Dodger Stadium, no less.
Yes. So I've seen the first Creed. I haven't seen the second one, and I've seen 0 Rocky movies.
Mm.
Boxing movies aren't really my thing. You've seen both Creed movies.
And
I think you
most
saw the
of the Rocky movies.
yeah, you saw the second one and didn't really. I mean, it's a boxing movie. You can follow the plot. There might be a few character
Yeah.
interactions that would have more depth if you've seen the first couple, but you're going to be able to follow what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't love the first one. I just found it incredibly formulaic. I thought the acting was pretty good, but
Yeah.
it just kind of fit all the things that I find dull about boxing movies for the most
Mm-hmm.
part.
Mm-hmm.
This one I was more interested in going in because I thought the core of the story sounded a little more interesting to me, kind of beyond just boxing. This kind of childhood friend that went to jail, he didn't, and some past stuff going on here, and now he's at the top of the world, and this guy's just getting out of jail and with not a lot of prospects, really.
Mm-hmm.
That intrigued me a lot. And like I said, I'm a really big fan of Jonathan Majors. So despite all the things I just said about how I feel about boxing movies and kind of the Rocky franchise as a result of that, I was going into this definitely giving it a chance. I was ready to be
Mm-hmm.
won over by
Mm-hmm.
a dynamic sort of 1-2 punch, if you will, allow
Nice.
me, of Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors. And I think their performances are both good, particularly Jonathan Majors.
Mm-hmm.
And the core of the story adds a lot of weight to what's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of it for me as far as story goes. I found that it hit still a lot of predictable, familiar beats. And I didn't really like the script at all. There's a lot of dialogue here that felt just like a lot of platitudes and
Mm-hmm.
sort of cliche lines and just sort of like almost like some saccharine moments where it's just like so sweet and precious at times with people just saying like, you're the best. No, you're the best. And
Yeah.
I found that a weird balance. I mean, I understand, I think what they're trying to do with showing the balance to the family life versus the ring.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like so far in the other direction where I felt like it didn't quite fit with the rest of the movie and where
Yeah.
they wanted that to go. So I don't know. I didn't love this. How did you feel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely share some of those sentiments. I think that they gained certain things, like particularly Jonathan Majors and that kind of interesting storyline. And I also liked that they kind of jumped far ahead where he's actually retired now, basically like from the beginning. I didn't see that coming. I thought that was neat. But then they also lost things that the other movies had. I think there was way less of Tessa Thompson in this one because her
Yep.
career has reached a point where her hearing is going, and they talk about that in the first two movies, but by this point, she's only producing, she's not actually singing, so we don't get any scenes of her performing, and we get more of their daughter, which was nice, but nothing that I haven't seen before from just generic kid of
Yep.
boxer in a boxing movie. Um, and then it was interesting not having Sylvester Stallone there, because I feel like for the first two Creeds, the chemistry with him and Michael B. Jordan wasn't always great, but kind of having him there was kind of a very like kind of grounding, kind of tied it to the whole mythology, and you knew what to expect. He didn't have to do anything amazing. Sometimes it's just good to have that kind of, and you just got to look for that next punch, and he's gonna do this. It's like a 2-minute pep talk scene, and it's like, all right, there we go. I get the Rocky vibes back in the system, and it was interesting not having him at all, because then they just kind of they brought up this other character to be his trainer, Lil Duke, who's in the other movies but not really prominently, and I don't know, he just didn't. It wasn't the same. It was weird seeing a Rocky movie. And I had never seen any of them until like 2 months ago. And then I watched a bunch of the Rocky movies, and I just watched the two Creed ones. It was a little weird having a Rocky related movie without Sylvester Stallone anywhere in it, and not have him
Yeah,
in near the ring or in the ring or anything. Um, so I don't know. It was a mixed bag for sure. They
yeah,
also took a very different approach to the final fight, which was very interesting and is not in any of the other Rocky movies. I'm not going to spoil it completely, but there's a little bit of surrealism. It does things visually that the other Rocky or Creed movies did not do, for sure. And that was definitely an interesting choice. It kind of made me sit up in my seat a little bit. I was like, okay, where are they going with this? Um, but yeah, I don't know, because the fight scenes themselves are always usually some of the best parts of the Rocky movies, and it's interesting watching from the beginning all through the Creed movies how the technical brilliance and how they film a boxing match just gets better and better and better, and now it just reached this point where they were like, let's just get like real crazy with it. It was like, we've done everything else, there's no other cool ways to film a boxing match other than like really getting imaginative. So I don't know, how'd you feel about that?
yeah. I was gonna bring that up because
Mhm.
that was the part that impressed me the most.
Mhm.
Um, it I just found that fascinating to watch, and yeah, we don't want to spoil too many things about it, but Michael B. Jordan did list like anime as an influence on how he directed and like how the fight scenes, the boxing scenes are choreographed.
Mhm.
So I thought that was really cool, and those ended up being most of my favorite scenes of the movie.
Mhm.
Um, the whole third act though felt weirdly rushed
Yeah,
to
I
me.
felt that
like
too.
like we kind of go along, and Jonathan Majors is really good at playing this character who's kind of emotionally wounded and guarded at the same time, but you can tell that like he's maybe also a little deceitful.
Mhm.
Like you can't really trust him. He just kind of feels like he could go off at any moment,
Yeah.
really, but you kind of get why at the same time. And I
He has
think
like a sadness in his eyes.
yes, and he presents this character that I think he makes the audience want to root for him very badly, and he
Mhm.
just continually makes decisions that make that harder and harder and harder until he just leans into, like,
I am the
supervillain
villain.
mode,
Yeah.
and that's where that transformation takes place so quickly and so abruptly, and then it's like a 10-minute, like, dual training montage, and then all of a sudden it's the last fight.
And then
It
then it's the night of the fight. I thought that was
Yeah,
weird too. I was like, "Oh,
that
okay."
that felt really rushed to me to the point where we got to the end. I didn't feel the weight of this really at all,
Mhm.
but I was still entertained by the final fight and the final sequence because the
Mhm.
choreography and the style of it was so interesting. So
Mhm.
I thought Jonathan Majors was really good. Michael B. Jordan's always good, but I think they're both better than the script here.
Yeah.
And it just didn't really live up to the potential that the premise of this story kind of had.
Yeah, I agree. I felt like their dynamic and the scenes with them and kind of their story, I was really interested to see what that was going to be. And it ended up being interesting and well acted, but nothing that I feel like is going to stick with me. There was never one in particular scene or one moment where it was like, oh, the betrayal. Like you said, it was kind of like, Majors kind of gets more and more confidence, but he's clearly still got some like emotional stuff he's got to work through. And then all of a sudden they're officially like, against each other, and then it's like out in the open, you get kind of the ESPN call out scene, and then it's the fight, and it's just like, oh, okay. And the training montages, yeah, didn't feel they've had better montages in the past, and it was interesting too. I felt like, yeah, Michael B. Jordan, he did a good job, but also I kind of got the impression that he was kind of ready to be done with this role a little bit, or
Maybe,
like
but I think they're making a fourth one, and like, why would he be
now
the
that
one
he's
to
at the
direct
helm.
this then? Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where he like the performance felt a little formulaic at times, but
Yeah.
then why be the one to direct it and keep the franchise moving forward? Maybe what
Hmm.
we get next is just a time jump and his daughter is kind of a teenager and getting into it. That would be
That.
interesting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it just kind of last one little thing. I found it kind of amusing how easily Jonathan Majors' character was able to just like put together an entourage of Creed haters.
I know. I know.
Like
Out of
that felt
nowhere.
really strange to me. Like once he goes villain mode, he's got so many people just wanting to be like, "Yeah, Creed, you suck."
Yeah, and like holding
And
up the belt, and like in it getting in his face, and I'm just like,
yeah, and
yeah,
like the beginning of the movie, like he's on top of the world and everybody loves him. And like what publicly happened that made like
yeah.
where like all these people out. I don't know. I thought
It's
that
like
was
no, it's like
odd.
it's like he literally was like, I need people to be in my crew, so I'm gonna pay you this much an hour, and the only rule is you have to hate Adonis Creed.
Yeah.
And they were just like, okay, like I'll
Yeah.
pretend to be your friends. Yeah, that came like out of nowhere
It's
completely.
kind of weird.
And another thing, the main kind of the it's another thing where like the thing that actually has driven a wedge behind them, or one of the main things that drove a wedge behind them, comes from a miscommunication. Michael B. Jordan couldn't have known, and Jonathan Majors couldn't have known. Like, and so then even after that's kind of revealed, they still neither one of them can just be like, I don't know. It seemed like there was an element of like, you guys could have talked this out.
Well, they try to lean into that over the course of the story about how like men and the world of boxing or whomever, toxic
Can't.
masculinity, whatever you want to kind of hang this on, just
Hmm.
won't talk about things and they can only settle things with their fists. And that's kind of I mean, it's an apparent
It
theme
works.
in the movie, but
Hmm.
it just kind of because the script doesn't work a lot for me, a lot of it just rings a little hollow and feels a little ridiculous.
That's totally fair.
All right, you want to get into the stars?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we will be right back. Okay, you can go first this time.
All right, I'll go first. I'm giving this 3 stars. I thought it was good. It was hovering right around 2.5, and I think what they did with the final boxing match visually got it up to a 3, because I think I will remember that. And I mean, I really like Jonathan Majors, and once he is involved in the movie, it's way more interesting, even if they didn't kind of do maybe some of the things they could have done with his character. And it's definitely not like a tight ship. It's a little sloppy at parts, but I like him. Anytime he's on screen, they're training, boxing, fighting, whatever. I was entertained. I felt like this was just kind of in line with like what the Creed franchise has been. I thought it was good. Lost some parts, like I mentioned, of the other two, gained some new parts, and in the end, it's kind of a mixed bag. But overall, I thought it was a good boxing movie, so I'm gonna give it 3.
All right, I'm a little lower. I'm going to go with the 2.5. It's got Jonathan Majors and some really good boxing scenes, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what I liked. The rest of it didn't really work for me and just kind of fell right into generic same boxing movie we get every year kind of tropes for
Mm-hmm.
me. So it's fine. If you're really into boxing movies, you'll probably have a good time. If you're not that into boxing movies, I don't think this is going to be the one to change your mind.
No, and also, last thing before we leave, be on the lookout for a white guy with dreads who gets a prominent role out of completely nowhere, and nobody knows who he is.
Can somebody yeah, somebody needs to tell me who that guy is because he looks like a cartoon.
Yeah, yeah, and
And he's just
you,
there.
Mason, and Jay all started looking over at each other like get a load of this guy.
Like
Like,
this is a person in real life,
yeah.
and he's just so bizarre looking, and then like he's just there,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and it's his job. I don't know. It's weird.
Yep. Be on the lookout for that. You'll know it when you see it.
For sure.
All right. And then if that's all, I believe it is your turn to put a wrap on the show.
It is.
All right. Take it away, Nate.
Sometimes we think we have to do it all on our own, but we don't.